Dolores sat in a corner of the parlor, holding the doll the healer made for her the day her mama died. The doll was stuffed with the gray moss that made the trees look like they had long curly hair. Her papa kept the room dark. He covered the windows with black, thin cloth for Marie's sewing because you don't want the sun coming in on all the sad people. That wouldn't be right. But the window stood open, and the cloth was thin to let her mama's spirit out so that it could leave when it was ready. The box in the middle of the parlor was covered with the same black cloth. Candles burned around it, 2 at each end. The light from the candles made strange shadows on the walls, shadows of the people in the room, their heads nodding or their fingers moving when they talked. The thin shape in the box wasn't really her mama at all. Before she went away, her mama said, "Didi, t'inquiète pas, je suis ici pour toujours." It will not be me inside that box. I will be out there in the woods playing with the feu follet. I'll be dancing and carrying on out there, and I'll be with my God for sure. But Dolores went out every night looking for those lights in the woods, and never did she see one once. Her arms were covered with welts from mosquitoes. Those feu follets, they were a strange thing. They lead you out in the forest and make you get lost. If you stick a knife in a tree, they will leave you alone. They're the lonely souls of the unbaptized babies, Mama said. Dolores thought they needed somebody to play with. That's why they trick you into the woods. Every time the front door opened, the sun lit up all the pine trees and the cypress trees against the bright blue sky. And more than once, Dolores thought of running as far away as she could from that room, but she knew her sister Marie would become crazy folle with her if she ran off on their maman's veillée. This time when the door opened, it was the healer coming inside. She headed right over to Dolores. She smelled like bayou water and the bay leaves Marie picked for soup. Her hair was long as the moss on the trees, and her skirts covered her feet. Dolores pulled away when she felt the hand on her head. Marie said, "Didi, you let that traiteuse rest by you? She was good to Mama, yeah." The traiteuse stroked Dolores' head. "Pauvre petit bébé, pauvre petit bébé." The traiteuse would come visit and pray over her maman, sometimes sing or rub her with smelly oils. Papa said the traiteuse healed people. She told Dolores that her mama had gone to heaven, but Dolores knew it was just another way of saying she was dead, just gone. Like that, not here anymore. Other things died around her before, like snakes boys kill on the edge of the bayou. She hated those boys for killing those snakes, but she didn't know the snakes, not like she knew her little cat. He got sick like her mama and went away too, just like that, gone. It felt different when you knew the one who died. More and more people came. They brought all kinds of food. The smells filled the house like Sunday dinner, plates of fish, oyster stew, roasted chicken and rabbit, and sweet things like bread pudding and sweet potato pie. Papa made a little altar out of wood for people to leave things, even though Mama could not use them anymore. Everybody had to put something there. He put her worn-out prayer book. Marie put her rosary and her kerchief Mama wore. The aunts and cousins put seashells and stones and carvings and a little grass doll. All Dolores had to put was the cross her Mama made for her one day in the woods out of sticks and moss. She put her drawings too, the ones she used to make while she sat on the floor in Mama's dark room, keeping her company. Well, you two are my captive audience here, so I don't know if you're interested in this or not, but I'm going to go on. So Leah asked me to talk today, and I appreciate her inviting me here, to relate my novel, which is here, to Women's History Month. And and I'm accompanied by these two handsome gentlemen, my son Daniel and Joe, my daughter Giova. The book takes place in Louisiana. I'm from New Orleans. It takes place in the 1920s along the Louisiana coastline, where the Acadian culture migrated from Canada when the English threw them out. So we have a little enclave of an ancient culture that was continued on the coast of Louisiana for decades until World War II, and the oil industry pretty much erased it. It still exists. I mean, there are a lot of Cajuns, there are a lot of people who speak French. My daddy was Cajun, and he grew up, French was his first language. So, but my book specifically talks about that culture and about women and women in the arts struggling to survive and create their art in a society and a culture that is not encouraging to that. So the interesting thing about women's history to me is how it was completely erased for so many decades. And no one even knew that women at one point, in the day were it. I mean, women's energy was the dominating force in prehistoric, I don't know if it's prehistoric, Paleolithic times. So the erasure of this culture kind of coincides with the erasure, I feel, of women and women's history, and is the struggle of these women is kind of a metaphor for women in history. So I'm going to read about this young girl. She's the main character. Her name's Dolores. She receives a camera in 1923 from a guy who's traveling around. It was a real person who actually took this picture. She receives a camera, and she's really a sensitive person who can't really deal with society very easily, and the camera gives her a way to deal with the world. So I'll read a little bit from that section. Dolores was waiting with Papa and her uncle for a stranger who was traveling along the coast in a houseboat. She heard them talking the day before about the man, saying that he had a camera and was taking pictures of the French people along the bayous and prairies of Louisiana. They sounded suspicious. Say he's got 4 or 5 of them things. I don't know why he's coming here. I don't want no pictures of me. No, said one man. Papa said, he says Cajuns are foolish to live in a place like this with storms and alligators and mosquitoes. Says we're poets to us. Poets? What the hell do you mean by that? Something about laughing in the face of death, said Papa. Strange talk, eh? They say he's not Cajun either. I don't know what he is. Maybe he came from France. I don't like it one bit. Dolores wrapped her fingers around strands of her hair and held them to her mouth. When the breeze stopped, the water turned still as brown green glass. Then the breeze came again. The sun broke into tiny sparks. Mosquito hawks bounced off the dark water, and the sun glowed through their lace-etched wings. Dolores wondered if the camera could stop a mosquito hawk right at the minute when the sun sparkled on it. When she heard about the camera a couple of weeks before, she couldn't think of much else except this man coming to town. The last week of school, the library was giving away old magazines, and one of them had pictures in it by a famous photographer. Her friend Earl read it for her. Quote, Steichen, that's the fellow's name, Earl said. He did a series of the Flatiron buildings in New York at different times a day. most famous is one at dusk where the street lights glow, the magazine went on. Shadowed figures walk the sidewalk and the building is lit by the lighting sunset. It's like the camera stops time, she said. It stops those people right there at that minute and it won't be the same ever again. I guess so, said Earl. I never thought of it that way. You can pick how you want it to be when it stops. She stuffed the magazine in her bag. So Dolores takes the camera and it begins to become her way of looking at the world and her voice. And she goes on to get married and move to New Orleans. And in Cocodrie, this little town, which sadly is now falling into the Gulf of whatever you want to call it. I don't know what to call it anymore. The Gulf of Mexico, I insist. She does fine when she's in Cocodrie, but when she gets to New Orleans, things are not so easy for her. Neighbors, people around her don't like the idea of her going around with a camera. Her husband wants her home to take care of him, to take care of whatever children they have. So she starts to have troubles. Let me read something about that. I don't know what to do, Daniel. So part of the problem is that we have another generation of women coming up in the 80s in this book. And part of my reason for writing the book was also I was fascinated by the idea of how people inherit things through the generations. So you can inherit the trauma and pain of your grandmother without ever knowing that your grandmother had that pain. So in this section, Earl is expressing his fears and concerns about his granddaughter in the 1980s. Earl had lived near Lake Pontchartrain or in this camp on stilts out in the lake 100 feet from shore for most of his 80 years. He had lost his legs and a wife and raised 2 children while fishing and crabbing it. Water was one thing you could count on in this city. Canals, bayous, lakes, rivers, and street floods after a summer rain. Ghosts were the other thing. Not like white sheets flying in the wind, but glimpses of memories from the past and other pasts that nobody took ownership of. These glimpses had started to bother him more since Elaine was home, mostly because she reminded him of his dead wife, Dolores. It almost seemed like Dolores was trying to tell him something. Elaine reached up and did something to her hair. Earl pulled the binoculars away from his face and shook his head. There she goes again. Dolores used to do the same thing. It was like she was trying to sweep cobwebs off her head. or female, are not allowed to do their creative endeavors, whatever they may be, tragic things can happen. So in this novel, Dolores has problems stemming from depression, but when her art is taken from her, it's even worse. So here, I'll just read from the book. The camera started to feel like a part of her body, and now that she understood the way things worked from light to paper, when there was no film, the camera seemed like a weight around her neck. When there was no film in it, the way she saw things and talked to things changed. It was hard to think, hard to be in the world. It all seemed louder and brighter and like it pressed on her from the outside, through her skin. It's a white feeling, she told Earl, empty. Everything is blank except for this pressing from outside. Everything closes in, like that rat we saw at the store, just his tail sticking out of the old copperhead. So Earl put away her dark room and she noticed something. The feeling would come back, and then she would go to bed again. So they took her to a hospital, and she told the doctor that the white feeling came so strong that everything else was blocked out. The doctor did something that Dolores could not remember to make her better. After that, she went home, and she could take care of her children. But the feeling became like a white seed in the back of her brain that might blossom at any time. For a while, it stayed as a seed, but she did not want that camera. And her husband worried all the time that she wouldn't be able to take care of her babies. The new baby would destroy her. The first one nearly did. Earl didn't realize how much giving birth can rile things up for a person like that, he said. If I'd known, I would never, but she came around again after you were born. She even started taking pictures again, and we got the darkroom working. Her pictures were different though, dark. She walked around the park and took pictures of people, suffering people, damaged people. At first we tried to keep her close, but it was impossible. She wandered around the city much more than before, all day sometimes. She went to the park and went for rides in the lagoon. She walked everywhere. People thought I was being sloppy, that I didn't care anymore. But I read something about that kind of sickness, about leaving people alone and not expecting the same things out of them as you do out of normal people. So I didn't. I tried to watch her when I could, got other people to help keep her safe. And she was for a long time. She always came home at night, and she always waited to come home over when someone was home before she left the house.